Hello, this is Bishop Doherty again with one of our mini broadcasts on topics of concern to all of us in the church. This particular podcast has to do with church news and how we receive it. Two things in particular, the content and the speed with which we expect final reports on various things. First of all, with regard to content, it's interesting how much of church news we can listen to, and we can talk about the church for 20 minutes without ever mentioning Christ, salvation, sin, and redemption. So this is one of the things that we have to correct. If we're talking about church news, how about let's do the work of the church? So the good news is Christ and discipleship, creation, sin, redemption, and our final destiny in heaven. The incarnation of Christ as Christmas approaches, that's an important thing to remember through Advent as well. So the good news has to be part of the news and the main news regarding the church. Then there is the human and institutional part, and those have many different pieces, both local, diocesan, national, and international. And sometimes, because of various cultures, we find that news will be having different sources at different times out of different cultures. So we have to be patient with how we interpret the news because it may not have the same meaning in every particular culture. The second thing that I'm interested in is the handicap that we suffer by expecting tremendous speed in church reports, the finality of things about what's happening with the pandemic, what's happening with our teaching on certain social issues, what's the final verdict on a Pope's encyclical. Let me say a couple of things here. First of all, we have to be careful not to confuse facts and opinions. It's very popular today to have opinions, and everybody's got one. You remember the old saying, opinions are like noses, everybody has one. Well, when we're trying to be a communion in the church, we have to realize that we have to be constrained to certain facts and teachings. Another thing is that we're handicapped by a thing called the culture of suspicion. And we've kind of been trained, whether it's in our politics or in our church life, to be suspicious of everything that everybody says. And we don't believe that everybody's telling the truth on the first bounce. That's not a great way to build a solid society. It's not a great way to build a community of worshipers. It's not a great way to run a school. It's not a great way to start a relationship between you and your dentist. So I think we've got to come back a little bit on our reflexes to have a culture of suspicion. Finally, the last thing I'd like to say is so often people get into discussions about church teaching and church documents, and I would just ask this: when was the last time we read for ourselves a whole document that the Pope wrote? Or is this like high school again, where we went out and got Monarch notes or Cliff notes and read a summary of a novel we were assigned to read, and then we pretend on the quiz that we had read it? I think this has been damaging to the church, and we're not in high school anymore. Not that I don't love high school. Peace to all my high school viewers, but you all know what I mean. So these are my thoughts on communication in the church, both how we give information and how we receive it. God bless you all.